On today's show, let's get ready for Cavs-Knicks Game 2. That's a 7:30 tip in Cleveland on Tuesday. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarrell. Jake Stevens, as always, is producing. Cavs-Knicks Game 2 is Tuesday. Cleveland right now, according to our friends at FanDuel, is a 5-point favorite. That is a half of a point difference from Game 1, where they were 5.5-point favorites. Evan, let's start with Cedi Osman, who played a ton of minutes in the second half. Spent a lot of time defending Jalen Brunson. It feels like he is probably going to be in the rotation. What do you make of Cedi Osman and how he fits into this series based on what we saw in Game 1?
I mean, I wrote about this a bit for Monday's story on Down Euclid, just about pulling the hook on Ricky Rubio. And Cedi Osman just alone provides you shooting upside. I think people can really dig into the brass tacks, the fact that like Brunson didn't make a ton of shots against him in terms of just Osman being the primary defender. Sure, you can look at the moments down the stretch where like Osman was getting ripped apart a little bit and nitpick at that. And I'm more of so looking at that and thinking like, I don't know if it's the best course of action, but Cleveland is starving for some form of just offensive creation off the bench at this point, and you're hopefully going to get it from Caris LeVert. You're not getting it currently from Ricky Rubio. I think Dean Wade is just too gun shy, so you need to look away from him. And if you go the Lamar Stevens route, you're not going to get that shooting upside, so you have to look elsewhere, and your alternatives are Danny Green and Cedi Osman, and maybe it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't in terms of Green and Osman here, and you lean towards Cedi in this one, and I know folks will say like, hey, analytically speaking, he's Cleveland's best shooter off the bench. Yeah, that there's some validity to that, but you have to just kind of pick and choose when it's optimal to utilize Cedi, and maybe that's more a question for JP Bickerstaff and just the coaching staff in general on how they can maximize the offensive opportunities for Osman out there. But I'm in agreement with you. Like, he played very well in Game 1. You have to reward that play to begin with. I think when JP Bickerstaff was asked by Jason Lloyd about figuring out the rotations, Bickerstaff said like he has faith in his guys and he has a full understanding of it, and he's just trying to find the best players available for him in the grand scheme that maximizes their opportunities to win. And for me, that kind of screams Cedi Osman, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Granted, we'll see how it goes. Like, if Cedi gets roasted on defense in Game 2, the hook might be short for him. He might get pulled pretty quickly. And then maybe you look at like Danny Green, or maybe even Lamar Stevens or Dean Wade get some burn just because of the rebounding issues that New York presents as well. But at least on paper, Osman makes a ton of sense just from the shooting aspect alone.
Yeah, I think the offensive upside of Cedi to me is much more interesting than the defensive upside. Like, I would not get it all caught up in how Cedi defended Jalen Brunson at the end of Game 1. I think if you look at what he did, was it like adequate? Yes, but I came away from that in real time and then watching back the tape that Cedi is both not as quick as Brunson and Brunson is stronger than him. Cedi is not like Brunson was like 4-9 against Cedi. Okay, he didn't cook him every time, but he had advantages on him and he got more space and more openings for shots, I think, than those numbers would indicate. I would not, like, if I'm JB Bickerstaff, if I'm the Cavs, I am not doubling down on Cedi as like my point of attack defensive guy. I think the minutes from a shooting perspective, from the need for just any kind of 3-point volume, I think is a thing. But I also would look, I understand he didn't play well offensively in Game 1. I would trust Isaac Okoro much more. I think you are not going to be a bet. There is no world in this series, Evan, where the Cavs are a better offensive team than the Knicks. That is not what is going to happen here. That is not going to happen. The Knicks were a better offensive team all year.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with this now. Because I'm just like, in terms of numbers, New York was a better offensive team than Cleveland. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I see where you're navigating this. I must have misheard you in my my clouded goblin brain. But go ahead.
The Knicks are a better offensive team. The Cavs' path to victory has never at all year been, let's get in the shootouts. Let's outpace teams offensively. That is not like how they win games. They win games via defense. They win games via getting stops. The numbers on Okoro on the floor versus off with him for defense were like outstanding. I think you got to lead into your defensive identity as much as you possibly can. Yes, you need Mobley to make more shots and Allen to make more shots and LeVert to do some stuff. But like you need to ride Okoro, I think, defensively and play Osman. Play them both. But I don't think you can like search for something that isn't your identity by like trying to make Cedi like your closing piece.
I agree with you. I think the luxury of Josh Hart being doubtful for game 2 is at least something that the Cavs can put in their back pocket. Maybe this makes it a little bit easier for them to at least tie up this series. Heading into Madison Square Garden tied up 1-1 is a completely different situation than being down 2-0 to the Knicks at this point in my eyes. But I agree with you. Like, you have to give Cedi some runway, but I think you have to lean on Isaac Okoro a little bit more. I asked him today, as we recorded this on Monday evening, rather, like, hey, how's your knee doing? He said he's fine. He's feeling 100%. He did have some, like, a kinetic tape around his, like, left knee in that region. So, like, that's kind of just worth keeping an eye on. Maybe he's not, like, fully 100%, but JB Bickerstaff said he was a full participant in everything they did in practice that day. So that's encouraging in and of itself. And then, just to go off that Okoro line of questioning, I asked him, like, hey, did you think you had a little bit of rust, or was it nerves, or what was going on for you out there, just at least to open the game offensively, where you saw him kind of get these wide open 3-point opportunities, and it was a lot of like a Josh Hart, even Emmanuel Quickley, or RJ Barrett as well, just sagging off of Okoro and kind of playing a little bit more help defense against Mitchell and Garland just to create pressure at the top. And Okoro was like, there's a little bit of rust. I hadn't played in 3 weeks up to that point, nearly 3 weeks. And it's just that is maybe some mixture of the jitters, but he at least is saying like, hey, we understand what the intensity level needs to be, what we kind of need to match with the Knicks going into this game. And to your point, I don't expect Isaac Okoro to be like a crispy clean 6-6 from 3-point range or something like that. But if he's able to make 2, possibly 3 3-pointers, like that could swing a lot of things back into Cleveland's favor, and at least would make the defensive pressure on Isaac Okoro and Darius Garland a little bit lighter. And this is something we've stressed for a while, especially when Okoro joined the starting lineup, is if he's able to keep defenses honest on the perimeter, like it's going to unlock a lot of stuff for Cleveland offensively. And to your point, Jared Allen needs to be better. Evan Mobley needs to be better. I think Darius Garland needs to be better as well. Likewise for Karis LeVert and maybe even Ricky Rubio if Rubio ends up playing this game. But Okoro is the smallest potato in this field right now, and there's so many other things that need to happen for Cleveland just to kind of click, and we can kind of keep beating this drum, but Donovan Mitchell's the only one who showed up, and the Knicks just kind of hit the Cavs with the physicality that they're not comfortable with. And I am now curious to wonder, like, okay, they have a taste of it now. Are they able to course correct and kind of exploit some of the things the Knicks threw at them? Because as you smartly pointed out, like, Donovan Mitchell may be figuring out New York's pick and roll defense could unlock a lot of things for not just him, but Darius Garland as well, and even Karis LeVert too.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, and comedy and theater near you. Game Time offers flash deals on last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. That, by the way, includes NBA playoffs if you wanted to go to Game 2. Image of seat views. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and then you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA, that's down below, to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off and download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Wait, folks. If you use that code LOCKEDONNBA, there are currently tickets going for $38 on Game Time for Tuesday's game between the Cavs and the Knicks. So you can get a ticket for $18 if you use code LOCKEDONNBA today on the Game Time app.
All right, so Evan, let's look at what needs to go right for Cleveland to get a win in Game 2. The Josh Hart thing is, I think, a big deal. Josh Hart would kill you on the offensive glass. He made some tough shots in Game 1. You know, like, he's just one of their sources of offensive rebounding. He's not. You just don't have to worry about him, like, you just don't have to worry about him like crashing Karis LeVert. You know, I don't know exactly how they'll replace his minutes. Like, does it mean more for RJ Barrett? I think Cleveland would live with that. Does it mean more Obi Toppin? I think Cleveland would live with that, right? Like, I think there are things you could certainly live with if you're Cleveland. That is a thing that would give me hope if I'm Cleveland. It's like, okay, like they're favored for a reason, I think, still, but no Josh Hart, I think, is an advantage for Cleveland if they're going to go, if this is going to go a certain way.
I absolutely agree. Like, maybe it's more Miles McBride getting minutes if the Knicks want to go 9 players deep if Josh Hart is unavailable. You probably see more of Emmanuel Quickley, you see more of Quentin Grimes, RJ Barrett, as you had noted. Like, there's ways the Knicks can tackle this, Obi Toppin as well, and if you're the Cavs, you're happy with this just because Josh Hart had, like Jared Allen said after practice, like, a lot of people are going to be talking about the rebounding, and as they should, like, Mitchell Robinson ate them alive on the offensive glass, and Josh Hart had 17 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists from the floor in his playoff debut for New York, and that he was a bit of the X factor for me in that game for New York. Like, you could tell that Jalen Brunson dealing with foul trouble was really working in Cleveland's favor. RJ Barrett's shot wasn't falling. I think Julius Randle still isn't quite 100%, but he was still kind of making some of those just like wacky Julius Randle shots where you're just like, okay, sometimes you have to tip your cap, or sometimes you just have to wonder like what laws of physics is he defying in order to make these shots. So Josh Hart just coming in kind of just steadied the Knicks a little bit at times on offense, especially on defense. I think it's just uncanny that this Knicks team in general just knows where to be at any given moment in terms of just offensive rebounding. And I think that's just credit to how the Knicks operate. Like 1 through 5, they're all ready to crash the glass off a missed opportunity. And let's say Hart doesn't play, you still have to be mindful of the fact that the Knicks are one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league for a reason. And it's going to be a concerted effort. Like, yeah, a lot of it does fall on Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, but I think JB Bickerstaff did correctly point out the fact that, like, it's not just on those two. Like, you need a more effort from the wing play, whether it's Isaac Okoro or Dean Wade or Lamar Stevens, if those are your guys playing at the 3, and then Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and Karis LeVert as well, depending on like that 2, 3, 1 spots, depending on how you run these rotations and lineups out. And Cedi Osman too. Like, you need guys just kind of crashing the glass and just playing with a little bit of that physical edge, so that you don't let the Knicks just kind of assert their dominance on you early in this one, and it turns into this another god-awful scrap where Donovan Mitchell tries to bail you out and find somehow some way to win this game.
Just for context on, just statistically why no Hart is a big deal, he is full stop one of the elite rebounding wings in the NBA. Yeah, so this year, according to the Clean of the Glass, had a defensive rebounding percentage of 18.2. That is in the top 3% of wings. He has an offensive rebounding percentage of 8.8%. That is in the upper 3% of wings. He has been, and that's with the Knicks specifically. He's just like a monster in the glass. He is like a very specific kind of wing, but provides a ton of value and fits kind of exactly what the Knicks are doing. It has been really emphasized to do that. I don't think, like, you know, if it's Toppin, if it's McBride, if it's like, you know, is it more minutes for Barrett, whatever it is, whatever Tibbs' solution is, they're just not going to match that same exact Hart. Like, yes, the Cavs will have to the Karis LeVert will have to box people out. Like, I would maybe consider playing Lamar Stevens because he will box people out and be physical. But like, you don't have as much of a worry about some of this going haywire with Hart. Now, you get to Mitchell Robinson. One of the things, Evan, that I think really stood out to me was on defense, what the Cavs like to do with Allen is he doesn't drop super deep. He kind of will come closer up to the line. He will kind of play in between. Now, most of the time, he's good enough to recover, to block shots, to at least contest shots without fouling. I maintain he's been like a step slower this year, but still pretty effective. The numbers bear that out as well. One of the things that really killed the Cavs in game 1 was that when he would come up, Robinson is slipping behind him. And if a floater goes up, if a shot attempt goes up, if a 3 goes up on a pass, off a pass, Robinson is like beating Allen to these spots.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just like what Mitchell Robinson is going to do. He is going to get in those spots. He's going to cause those problems. He's like particularly just the kind of center. And with an Knicks play is kind of built to exploit, you know, guys, the centers that come up a little bit out of drop. I don't know if the Cavs can like fully alter their defensive scheme. Like There might be there's some back end layering I think you could do. Maybe you drop down a little bit further just to avoid that, and that's maybe where Okoro on Brunson would be. You could say, okay, like we can trust Okoro on his own a little bit more than Osman or Darius or Donovan, right? In those kind of situations. But Jarrett just like has to. It's a lot. It is going to be hard. I'm not going to say he's going to succeed every time, but he cannot get beat to spots right under the rim as much as Mitch Robinson. I mean, like we should know too. Like when I went and pulled the numbers on how good of an offensive rebounding night the Knicks had. If overall in regular season playoffs, that was the third highest offensive rebounding rate a team posted against the Cavs all year.
That's an interesting statistic, just to like when you put it into context like that. Allen kind of said like we've never been the greatest at defensive rebounding, and you have to just kind of respect the fact that like Robinson, Hart, the Knicks in general are very good at that. But I think it is like an oil and water situation where those two don't mix very well together. But it's interesting just to point out, and like you said, you can't stop Mitchell Robinson 100%, and you can't completely change your entire schematic or formula or plan in like a macro sense like that. Like that would be wild if the Cavs just threw out everything that they had planned for this series and just completely like went back to the drawing board in 2 days time to try and beat the Knicks. So they're gonna just tinker and find things that work, and I do think some of it is the physicality aspect. I do wonder if just maybe throwing 2 bigger bodies at Mitchell Robinson helps too. Like, let's say you have like the spacing wise, it's going to be abhorrent, but like if you run lineups of Stevens, Mobley, and Allen, like you use Stevens as just kind of like that extra guy who can grind a little bit and just be like the extra body that either one boxes out Robinson or just kind of just tries to slow him down and maybe check him a little bit just to make sure like he doesn't get those opportune spots to grab offensive boards. Like he just has a tenacity to do so. And you just find ways to maybe counterbalance it a bit, because if there is no Josh Hart, it does not completely cut the head off the snake, because Julius Randle had a pretty good game offensive rebounding wise too, but it certainly makes things easier for the Cavs because they gave up 17 second chance opportunities to New York. I believe New York scored 23 points off of those, and you just kind of have to cut the head off the snake a little bit. And yeah, that's where I'm at. And I have a question for you on maybe something the Cavs could do differently as well. And it's something I didn't notice until I kind of like went back and looked at the numbers and just kind of looked at certain plays, like certain vignettes of the game. And the Cavs did a really good job with some on-ball pressure situations. They did a good job forcing turnovers or just like catching the Knicks either sleeping or being sloppy with the ball or initiating offensive sets. And because they're not a very assist-heavy team, and when they do move the ball, like it's sometimes easy to read where the ball is going. But like I did notice like the Cavs would get in good opportunities where they would force turnovers, and like there's the play where Donovan Mitchell gets Cedi Osman on the fast break, and that's good. Or there's instances where like Ricky Rubio draws an offensive foul, and that's a turnover, or Darius Garland turns over the ball on the fast break, or things like that. If the Cavs can just tighten up their mindfulness with the ball when they force these turnovers and kind of get these prime positions against the Knicks, like that could, I don't want to say 100% like cancel out what the Knicks are doing on the offensive glass, but at least give you a better fighting chance, because if you can't completely stop this, you have to find some type of edge elsewhere, and that might be where the Cleveland finds their in.
Yeah, the Knicks had a turnover rate of 17.2% in game one. The Cavs at 14.9. Cleveland, I think, has to be a team that just doesn't turn the ball over as much. They just need to kind of maximize some of that stuff. And look, I mean, a ton of shots at the rim. Didn't shoot as well at the rim as they normally do. Like defensively, like you would feel pretty good about, I think, some of the stuff. I think that the capitalizing on turnovers and also just not turning the ball over as much, I think would be a particularly big deal. I'm looking at the cleaning the glass box score and just the offensive rebounding stuff. Just it's like it's nutty, man. When it's like in burnt orange and cleaning the glass, it's like upper percentile, and it's just like there's like in the overview and 4-factor section at the top, it's like a lot of blue, because this game, like as close as it was not like the highest quality basketball necessarily, but then there's like a bright burnt orange like offensive rebounding percentage for the Knicks, and it's like, oh crap, that was really important. All right, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Remember, to play, all you got to do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they go score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you win. You can win up to 10 times your money in any entry. There's no competing against other people. It is just you versus those projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, PGA, WNBA, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, and many, many more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. PrizePicks offers safe and fast withdrawals. It is currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up today and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget, enter that promo code Locked On and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Last segment, Locked On Cavs. Chris Manning, Evan Dammarrell here. Last thing I want to say about Game 2 to watch, Evan, is if there's one other thing about Cedi Osman we didn't hit on that I think is worth kind of considering. He is one of the, him and Okoro both, I think, provide something in terms of getting you out in transition. The Cavs, to my personal liking, play a little slow. They sometimes are kind of dragging to get into their sets. They can take a little bit to get out on the break. If they have two players who like to run and who like to get out off of rebounds and off of turnovers, it is Osman and Okoro. Mobley does as well off of live rebounds, although that would require him to have a better rebounding game than he did in Game 1 to kind of unlock some of that. But that is a way I think Cleveland can make life easier on itself. If those guys can get out and run, if Mobley can get rebounds and get out and push the pace and not just rely on Mitchell and Garland to kind of set everything up against a set defense, Cleveland will look better if they just move a little bit faster, I think.
I mean, yeah, they will. They definitely don't have the legs to match the Knicks just in terms of bench depth, but they have guys like Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, who are comfortable with playing with speed and initiating offense in the fast break. We saw it especially with Mitchell in Game 1, but like as you noted, there is Okoro, Osman. I think Evan Mobley should be lumped into this category too. But the Cavs just playing at a slower pace. They are lethargic at times setting up their sets, but it is also just a victim of playing 2 7-footers in your starting lineup. Like the Cavs just naturally play slower, and I think the methodical process does work. But when you have a team like the Knicks, who are one of the better offensive teams in the NBA, I believe in terms of offensive rating, they finished second in the league to end the year. So like that's pretty good, obviously. And so there may be times, and or at least I did when I talked with Alex Wolf, and you might have as well when you talked with Gavin about this for our Locked On Knicks crossover, like the Cavs could find themselves in a precarious spot where they try to match the Knicks in pace, but they don't need to do it on every play. But if there's opportunities to get easy buckets, like why would you do that to yourself? Because as you had noted in the last segment, this was not a generally pretty basketball game for Cleveland pretty much across the board, and the advanced numbers really sink your teeth into it and like just show you that it's just not a pretty basketball game in general. And well, for as much of a slugfest and just grind out as Game 1 was, I'm curious to see if Cleveland is able to kind of come out and maybe play a little bit of a cleaner offense, obviously limiting turnovers, but maybe finding there's those easier opportunities on the fast break so you're not just absolutely gassing yourselves and just watching Donovan Mitchell have to do like every little thing on offense and defense at times too, just to try and find a way to get you a 2-point lead that you watch evaporate almost instantaneously.
All right, so we'll end on this bit of news, non-playoff related. Memphis's Jaren Jackson Jr. wins Defensive Player of the Year, the newly named Hakeem Olajuwon Award. As far as voting went, he finished first with 391 total points. Brook Lopez from Milwaukee finished second with 309 points. Evan Mobley finished third. He had 8 first-place votes, 10 second-place votes, and 31 third-place votes. Evan, here's what I will say about this. I am in the camp that like I think Jaren Jackson Jr. like is a deserving candidate. And I think like the people that have spent a lot of time arguing about this on Twitter are just like wasting a lot of their time. He's really good. I understand
especially when how nice the weather was before Monday.
Just like, go touch some grass.
Touch grass.
Touch some grass. Have a water. Have a beer if you partake in alcohol. Whatever. Jaren Jr. had a really good season. I want to put something in perspective with Mobley, though. This is a 21-year-old player who finished third in Defensive Player of the Year. Jaren Jackson Jr. at 23 years old, is the second youngest player to win the award, and he is, it's only by a matter of months. So here are the players that are 23 years old is the youngest anyone has ever won the award. Alvin Robinson won it, Kawhi won it, Dwight Howard, and Jaren Jackson. Those are 4 players. Evan Mobley is going to turn 22 in June. Okay?
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling
22.
pretty good, yeah.
He will turn 22 years old on June 18th because he was born in 2001. Okay? He has 2 full seasons to potentially win Defensive Player of the Year and be the youngest player ever to win the award. It would not shock me. In fact, I would probably feel pretty optimistic about it that might happen. He is that good, and for him to be 3rd at age 21 in Defensive Player of the Year and to be voted on by some people and have a really legitimate case, even if like Jackson wins, that is so impressive. That is astounding for a player to be that good on defense and consider that good on defense in year 2 of his NBA career at 21 years old. Just as maybe you're annoyed about that, I get it. People want to be fans, I get it. You know, you watch Evan Mobley every night and like you come away astounded. I certainly do. But like this guy is going to be a stud defender for years and years and years, and he's 21 years old, and it would not surprise me. Yeah, just spicy over here. It would not shock me. In fact, I would think it is likely, in my mind, that he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year before he turns 23 because he's on that trajectory right now.
I agree with you. I wouldn't even be surprised if he gets all defensive. Like if he's first team all defense or even second team all defense this year, like that would not surprise me either, just because he's been that good. And sure, people can get caught up in the minutia of it, but Defensive Player of the Year means best defender in the league, like in a singular sense. But like Evan Mobley's still very, very good. And to Chris's point, this is his 2nd year in the league, and he finished 3rd Defensive Player of the Year voting behind Brook Lopez, who you can make a more strong argument or maybe should have finished behind Mobley just because of how the Bucks function on defense, especially with Giannis and their drop coverage and just their schemes in general. But listen to Locked On Bucks if you want to hear more about that. Mobley he was the catalyst for the Cavs last year. He's the reason why Cleveland was able to just kind of become a winning team overnight like they did, become a defensive, just grinded out defensive team. To begin with, it's interesting because when you like just pick the brains of like Jared Allen or JB Bickerstaff, like Allen understands his role and responsibility, which is to lock down the paint, protect the rim as much as he can, provide rebounding opportunities, and more than anything, allow Evan Mobley the luxury to be this, as Chris describes it, just an alien on defense where he's able to defend in isolation. He's comfortable defending guards on the perimeter. He's comfortable switching on guys if you force a switch on him. He is more than okay with covering so much ground on the defensive side of the ball, whether it's up at the perimeter or he rotates towards the paint and just keeps defending and sticking to his man or just the ball in general. Like he does so much stuff, and it's just like the coaching staff or just anyone you really like talk to who has like a very strong appreciation and understanding of Evan Mobley's game is he's a sponge for this stuff, and like you tell him something and he understands it right away. And I'm sure there's disappointment in the moment for him personally, but I'm sure he's just going to internalize this. Maybe he uses it as fuel and motivation and fire, similarly to maybe the Rookie of the Year campaign last year, but he didn't seem that bothered by it. Like it was the most mild-mannered contest between him and Scotty Barnes at the end of the day. But award stuff is silly, like getting up in your feelings about it. I agree with Chris with touching grass, but if you just take a step back and just appreciate the fact that the Cavs were able to get the best player from his draft class, who is going to be their best player in probably no time at all at this point, and it's going to because of that because of that defensive first identity that he rocks with, it's going to take Cleveland to such amazing and incredible heights. And I'm fascinated to watch where Evan Mobley like peaks at, because I don't see an end in sight. Whether it's like, we can talk about the offensive superlatives and hyperboles. I'm sure people are like, oh, game one he didn't look like Tim Duncan, blah blah blah. I don't care, but I know he's special. But like the defensive stuff he does is just so incredible on a night-to-night basis that once he just kind of finds his footing and his comfort level in the playoffs, like he could be a monster next to Donovan Mitchell, just more so on the defensive side of the ball, whereas Mitchell is just going to be that offensive beast that he always is come playoff time.
Well, in there, again, Game 2 Tuesday. Evan and I will have a recap of that after that game ends. Please subscribe on YouTube, your podcast platform of choice if you have not already. This episode was produced by Jake Stevens. Peace out, everyone. Have a great Tuesday.